Okay. Hey everyone, my name is Mary Beth and I am an alcoholic. It's so good to see familiar faces and new faces. Um, my sobriety date is November 10th, 2015. And, you know, I never thought I would say this before Alcoholics Anonymous, but I'm grateful every day. You'll have to excuse me, my throat's a little scratchy, but I have some water. Um, I have no idea where I'm going to start or how I'm going to finish. So let's just go back just a little bit, and I'll try not to stay drunk too long, although I had a lot of laughs at my own expense. I grew up in a university town in Oklahoma, and four kids, two parents. Dad was a real nice drunk until he wasn't. He I guess crossed that line and got a little, crazy. But on the outside, our family looked like, a good family. Both of my parents were educators, and we all stayed out of trouble because we knew if we got in trouble outside of the home, we were going to get in trouble even more so at home because that's what we were told. Um, by the time I was in high school, my dad got progressively worse with his drinking, and he got violent. And I can remember many times standing in front of my siblings so he would hit me and not them. And my mother, you know, she just stood there or went to the other room, and I just resented her. I thought, where is your backbone, lady? I can remember being so mad at her that by the time I graduated high school, I left at 17 and went to college and rarely spoke to her again until I got sober. Um, she grew up in a household where women were inferior. Her mother ingrained that into her. She treated my brothers as superior people. And I can remember growing up, third, fourth grade, cooking and cleaning and doing her job. So, I mean, there was a lot of resentment I didn't even realize was there until I got sober. I knew I was angry at her and I knew I didn't like her, but I just didn't understand. I didn't understand why until I got to AA. So, fast forward, I went to college and many universities, made a lot of geographical changes. And I knew something wasn't right inside. I knew I never felt equal to other people, even growing up. My brothers were absolutely brilliant in school with math and science. And I can remember in school, I couldn't do algebra, and I in the middle of a test, I'd put my head down on my desk and cry. I gave up and was so embarrassed. And so we've heard a lot of people say, I felt less than, I didn't feel equal to, I didn't feel good in my own skin. And I looking back, I didn't know it at the time because I always had on a smile and, a face that didn't show what was going on in our household growing up. So when I went off to college and made lots of went to different universities all the time, things weren't going the way I thought they should. It wasn't me, it was the professors, the people I partied with. They didn't have the right clothes, the right anything. And so I would just go to different schools and not realizing I'm taking myself with me everywhere I go. You guys have taught me a lot about me. After, I don't know, three, four, five universities, who's counting, right? I landed a really good job in Dallas, Texas, and uh, maintained that job for years. How? I don't know, because the greatest thing for me was and I didn't even start drinking till 17. I did not drink in high school. I did not smoke. I didn't hang around the people who did. But, get me out of my home environment and wham, girl goes wild. And so when I moved to Dallas, the big thing was to go to happy hour every night after work, right? And I'm working with a lot of people who drink like I do. And so, I'd go to happy hour and drink and then drive home 6 lanes of traffic, weaving in and out. Never got a ticket, never had a wreck. Basically, I didn't have consequences. But I can remember my first university. and looking back, I see where I had, a lot of self-esteem issues, a lot of lack of self-worth by far. I was leaving school to go 3 miles away, 3 hours away to visit a girlfriend that was a childhood friend, and drinking in the car. This is early 80s. And there was a guy with his thumb out on the road, hitchhiking. And I thought, what the hell? So I just pulled over and picked him up. Didn't even think twice about my life, any circumstances. So he's riding with me, and I told him where I was going. He'll go, I'll ride. We're in Oklahoma, so we were headed toward northeast Oklahoma. Not that it matters. And so I took him about 2.5 hours away in the car with me. And everything was fine until he said, I'm on the run. And I said, okay. Now I'm 18 years old. And I said, okay, that's cool. He goes, yeah, my wife had a boyfriend and I had to kill him. I said, okay. This is like 15, 20 minutes into our drive. And so I reach into my seat and I have a paper sack with a bottle of something in it, vodka, scotch. It was hard liquor. And I pulled down the paper sack and opened it up and I said, dang, you need a drink worse than I do. And I was scared to death inside. I mean, the guy just told me he whacked off his wife's boyfriend. And, I get it. But at the time I had to play cool. So about 2 hours later, 2.5 hours later, I drop him off at this little dive motel. And we're chatting the whole way and drinking and sharing the bottle. And he reaches over when he gets out of the car and kisses me on the cheek and says, don't ever, under any circumstances, ever pick up another hitchhiker. And I looked at him and I said, okay. And he got out of the car and I drove off and chugged the rest of the bottle. I mean, I stayed cool during the whole drive. And then I realized where I'd put myself, the position I'd put myself in, and I just chugged that bottle and went on to see my girlfriend and told her what I did. And we laughed about it like it was no big deal. It was a big deal. And, that was just one incident. Another incident about a year later, I was so distraught and so miserable in my life and drinking every day. I'd show up to class reeking of alcohol, but my biggest concern was, what was I wearing? What was I wearing? Did I look cute? Did I look right? Just not secure with myself at all. And thinking that, people, places, and things are going to change me. So I drive. I've had enough for some reason. And a lot of these things I didn't even remember until I got, years into sobriety. So I drove to South Texas from Oklahoma. I drove until I ran out of gas, out of money, out of gas, and I don't care. And so I'm at this truck stop, and I asked this trucker if I could just hitch a ride with him and go wherever he's going, not knowing the guy, not caring about my well-being once again. And I said, I've run out of gas. My car's over there. I'm out of money. And I just want to go. I don't care what happens to me. And he took me inside that truck stop. This was before I had a cell phone. And he made me call my mother. And my mother somehow, I don't remember how, but she wired me money, got me money. And I was able to get gas and get back home. I mean, I don't know who the truck driver was, but ever since I remembered that story, I get out of the way of truckers today. I have a little more respect, whether whether they behave like that man did or not, but he did me a favor. So I live in Dallas and I'm working and I show up for work every day, sometimes late, but I make my boss a lot of money. So, I'm pretty sure that's the only reason I kept my job. And my mother lives in another state and decides that she is going to retire and wants to move back to Oklahoma. I sell my home and move to where she's living and help her pack up and get her house ready to sell and then move her back to Oklahoma. We get her situated, and there is no way in hell I'm going to live in the same town with her. So I moved 45 minutes away because I found this 100-year-old house that's going to fix me. Oh, it needs a little cosmetic work. I'm going to do it. And, just another just another delusional thinking on my part that something or someone is going to fix me. So before we move, before I move her back to Oklahoma, I know I'm not an alcoholic. I just know I'm not. So I quit drinking on my own for 6 months, longest I've ever not drank since age 17. And I don't know, I think I'm 50, 49 or 50, whatever. And so I think, wow, I'm not an alcoholic. But don't let me forget to mention that I had a seizure when I abruptly quit drinking alcohol at that time, too, and ended up in the emergency room and not even having a clue that if you drank like I drank, which was about half a gallon of vodka a day, that you probably need to do it gradually or go to a detox center or get some help, because I could have had cardiac arrest. I could have died. And I didn't know that until the ER doctor told me. So, I quit drinking for 6 months after that and thought, yeah, I'm good. I don't have an alcohol problem. I'm going to treat myself and go to the bar, fix my little styrofoam to go cup, and went to the bar. I had 3 drinks at the bar. Now I've gone 6 months without drinking. So basically, I'm doing a relapse without a program and had no clue, because my body was free and clear of alcohol. And then to pound drinks like I used to before I got sober, well, another part of my insanity. So I think, oh my gosh, for the first time, I better get the heck out of here. I'm the one who closed the bars down. And so I leave the bar, get in my car, and head home, hit a curb, have a blowout, pull into an empty parking lot, and can't find my cell phone. I've got a cell phone by now. And so I think, I can change a flat. I can do anything. I don't need any help. I've survived on my own all this time. You know, went through 2 husbands, which didn't last very long because I was so good with relationships. And, went through lots of relationships in between both husbands. Well, if you could call them relationships, sometimes were very short lived, maybe 1 hour, 1 day, one night. But nevertheless, I sucked at relationships, and didn't know that until you guys taught me that too. So in the parking lot, I'm going to get out of the car and change my flat, lift the trunk, and I can't walk. I am so inebriated by the 3 drinks I had at the bar that I can't. So naturally, I'm brilliant, my smart alcoholic thinking, I'll just flag someone down to help me. I know everyone in this town. I knew no one. I mean, this is the town my mother lived in. I knew no one. And so I flashed my lights and waved my arms, and a huge SUV pulled in, and then another big SUV pulled in. Those guys were so sweet. I'll never forget them. They changed my flat, parked my car in a proper parking spot, took my keys, handcuffed me, and took me to jail. I flagged down 2 cops. First time and only time I've ever had consequences with my drinking, other than, you know, my wonderful attitude with all my relationships, including family. So I get out the next day and get to my car and start drinking again. Did not faze me one bit. So I had a choice where I was living, to go to AA or Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Well, I'm not going to AA. AA's for quitters, right? I learned this in a bar. AA is for quitter. It's, I heard it's a cult. It's a Bible thumping organization. They're going to brainwash me. I'll take Mothers Against Drunk Driving, please. So I went to weekend courses. That was my, what I had to do, other than hire an attorney. That was nice. But the only 2 things I learned in Mothers Against Drunk Driving: one, that the average person drives 80 times drunk before they get pulled over. And with my brilliant thinking, I swear, I raised my hand and I said, is that in a month? He meant the lifetime, the whole time. The average person drinks 80 times before they finally get pulled over. I drank and drove at least 80 times a month. So I thought it was reasonable. And then the other thing I learned is, the next time I choose to drink and drive, go ahead and go to a really nice hotel. Get a hotel suite, invite all your friends, have them taxied in, let them order room service, all the booze they want to drink, and send them home the next day in a taxi. And it's still cheaper than having a DUI. And my whole thought when I heard this was not that I have a drinking problem. I missed out on a really good party. That was my thinking. No, I don't have a drinking problem. So what I was, I got my mother back to Oklahoma and found an old 100-year-old house that needed me. It just needed me. It called me. It was a really cool old 2-story house with a big front porch, and I envisioned the rockers and the ferns hanging down, and mint juleps with lots of cocktails. 3 weeks after I got there and drinking even heavier than I was when I was helping my mother get moved, I was on the second story of my house, and I looked down into the entry hall and I thought, I'm going to die. I'm going to fall down these hardwood stairs, plump, 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 and hit the landing and just break my neck and die. And my only thought was not necessarily that I'm going to die, but I'm going to stink the neighborhood up. I know no one in this town. I'm not working yet. I'm just hanging out because I'm going to, fix myself with redecorating this old house. My ego and fear was more concerned about stinking the neighborhood up than getting sober or dying. So 3 weeks after being in that house, I called the AA hotline and no one answered. Are you kidding me? No one answered. I thought, well, geez, what kind of organization is this ANA thing anyways? So I left a message. Now I'm drinking, okay? I'm drinking and calling AA. And so I just hung up I left a message and said, I need a little help here. And I thought, okay, so I hung up, and about 10 minutes later, this really nice man who was in my area called me back. And his name was Joe. And I told him who I was and that I think I have a problem with drinking. And he asked me, well, how much do you drink? And I was insulted. I said, what? He goes, how much do you drink? I said, well, I drink as much as I want. How dare you ask me how much I drink? What he was doing was trying to determine if I quit abruptly, I might have a seizure. Did I need detox? Did I need a treatment center? He was trying to help pre-evaluate me for my own good, my own health. So we talked for a while. I think it was 2 or 3 hours. He says it was longer. I thought it was 10 p.m. and he says it's 2 or 4 in the morning. Who's counting, right? So he was so nice to me, you guys. The first time I talked to anyone in years that was kind and respectful and understood the way I drank. He understood in a way that no one I'd ever talked to, no one I'd ever had a relationship with, even people I drank with understood. And it could be that I've, never been around another alcoholic before, but there is so much value. I see it today, and I even help with the hotline today because of this man. But one alcoholic talking to another, you just can't. You can't make that stuff up. You can't. I don't even think you can teach it. You're either an alcoholic that can help and talk with another alcoholic just based on your experience and what you've been through. And that was the first time I was willing to listen to someone else about AA. So he was so nice to me that I promised him the next day. He goes, would you like to try a meeting tomorrow, which was Saturday night? And I said, yes, I would. Now, the next day when I sobered up a little bit, I was not interested at all. Did not want to go, did not, and thought, golly, girl, how drunk do you have to get to make a promise like that? Well, I wasn't so drunk that I forgot. So I didn't drink that Saturday, and I went to a meeting that night at 8 o'clock. It was a Saturday night. They pulled out the first step one in the 12 and 12. I remember it was like it yesterday, and I was the only girl in the meeting, and it was not a stag meeting. It just happened to be this small little town where I got sober. There were, maybe 3 or 4 women in AA and 15, 20 men. So I kept going to meetings, and everybody was nice to me, but the whole time I'm looking around the room, I'm thinking, okay, what's the catch? What's the gig here? What do you guys want from me? You say no dues or fees, but what's the deal? So I was very skeptical, doubtful, resentful, did not want to participate in reading the tradition steps or even daily reflections. And I warmed up to that after a while. And then you guys all wanted my phone number. Here, take my phone number. What's your phone number? And I thought, no, No, what are you guys going to do? Show up at my house if I relapse? What if I don't make it? What if I drink tomorrow? What if I drink next week? You guys know this is a small town. I'm pretty sure you know where I live. So I wouldn't give them my phone number, but I had a brilliant idea. So the next day I went to this dollar store and got a burner phone. I got a burner phone. And I went back to the A&A meeting that next night and I gave everyone my phone number. And I thought, well, if I relapse and if I don't make it, you know, I can just throw that phone away. But I didn't. I still have that phone to this day. And eventually I started, they kept pushing, get a sponsor, get a sponsor. And I thought, really, really, you guys are all crazy. Not me, but you guys are. So it took me a few weeks, maybe a month to get a sponsor. And by the time that I did, this girl had 3 months. She had 3 months. I thought, oh my gosh, she's great. I don't believe anyone could last 3 months without drinking. I was doing good to get through a week. And so I asked her to sponsor me. And, I'm going to share this because it's real. She relapsed after a couple of months. And at first I thought it was my fault. And then I later found that she was prone to relapse. So in the meantime, I started making a cake every day because I was getting a little crazy, restless, and irritable. So I started, I wasn't working. I made a cake every afternoon because about 12 or 1 o'clock, I started hearing those liquids pour over my ice, clunk, 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 clunk. And I had to get busy. I had to do something with my hands and my mind at the same time. So, and I'm not Betty Crocker, you guys. I do like to cook, but Betty Crocker was not my goal in life, okay? So I made a cake and I took it to the meeting every single night for I don't know, 2 or 3 months. And some of it's a blur, but I do remember printing out a new recipe every day and taking a cake to AA. And sometimes they flattened by the time I got there, but you guys would eat it. You guys ate everything I brought in there. It's like, if you want to get rid of food, take it to an A&A meeting. They will eat it. And the ingredients were fresh. It wasn't like I was poisoning anyone, right? And then that wasn't enough because, I'm the kind of person that I've got to do more to feel more and be more, a little bit OCD. And so the Sunday meeting I went to at 11 o'clock, they'd always bring donuts. And I thought, oh, I can do better than that. I'll make homemade cinnamon rolls. And then I started making breakfast burritos. And then I started making bundt cakes and quiche and this and that. I'd start on Friday nights. I was insane. I'd start on Friday nights, go to the grocery store, get all my ingredients, prep all day Saturday, get up 5 in the morning on Sunday. And there used to be about 9-10 people at this group, so no big deal. Well, word travels when there's food involved for alcoholics and addicts. It's almost like they have this little secret code. There's food at this meeting. There's food at this meeting. Show up. And they do. By the time I quit doing that, there was 40 to 50 people every Sunday. And I'm telling you, I fed everyone. I'm not bragging. I did it because I had to keep busy. And I'm not going to cuss, but I am going to tell you one story. This 35-year-old sober man came every Sunday to this meeting. There were several long timers that were there. And after the meeting, I was standing out on the front porch of this meeting place, and this old timer said, Mary Beth, now that you're feeding everyone, every crackhead in town is coming to this meeting. Now, I'm probably 6 months sober, and I have a mouth on me. And definitely no filter at this point because you guys haven't taught me that yet. And I looked at this long timer and I said, listen, you little trucker. I did not say trucker to him. I said, you know what I said? I said, as long as these people get across that threshold for 1 hour and they can eat, it's nothing off your back. It's not your time, your money, your dime, or your effort to cook it. So if they get across that threshold for 1 hour and maybe get a little sobriety, don't worry about it. And that long timer texted me every morning for 7 years until 2 days went by and he didn't text me. And I found out he had had a heart attack and died. But, you just, I mean, I laugh at that story to this day because here I am, this know-it-all little insecure, lots of ego and insecurity issues. And I just let him have it. I thought, you're not better than anyone from NA because see, the NA meetings met upstairs and the AA meetings met downstairs. Well, the NA people came down for breakfast. Of course they did, free food. But he would resented them. And I used to think, you just think you're better because you're AA. And I just wasn't going to have it. Nevertheless, I did get another sponsor, and it was suggested to do 90 meetings in 90 days. It's not in the big book, but it was just a suggestion. And she also suggested that I don't have a relationship with anyone in AA or anywhere for 1 year. And I can remember looking around the room thinking, yeah, that's not going to be a problem for me. Because when I came in here, I had I had so much shame. I parked a block away. I didn't want anyone to see me go into the AA building, but yet, I'll park in the front door of any bar. Okay. And I I haven't stopped coming to AA since I got here. And I think the biggest thing for me is I've stayed busy. And it's the first time in my life I felt like I've got a purpose. You know, Before, material things made me feel important, made me feel successful. Cars, houses, clothes, new shoes, really nice new shoes, boosted my self-esteem and ego for at least until I wore them twice and then it was over. But because of Alcoholics Anonymous, you guys have taught me about me. And I understand about not having a relationship if you're not already in one, because you guys gave me the opportunity to work on me, to work on what's between my ears, to find out what makes me tick, what made me drink. Now, I never once thought before I came into the rooms why I drank the way I did. Not once did I understand, fear, resentment, my ego, low self-esteem. I never even used those words. And he gave me an opportunity to work on me. Now, I did start dating someone about a year and a half or so afterwards, and I'm the defiant one. I'm never going to be married to AA. I might be married to my sobriety, but I'm not going to be married to AA. Are you kidding me? And I was also the one who said out in the parking lot with everyone, I'll never date anyone in AA. Are you kidding me? They're crazy. This guy I'm dating and have for 7 years or 8 now. He had more sobriety than me, but he's the only person I have ever met in my life that gets me, that gets what ticks between my ears. And he is tolerant and kind and funny, like I'll say, Steve, that's just my personality. And he just slowly turns his head and looks at me and says, really? Which one? That's some funny stuff, you guys. But it's because you guys have taught me how to laugh at myself, to forgive myself, to be okay with me and the skin that I'm in. And yes, you guys scared, and I'll wrap this up. I see the time. You guys scared me with the God thing. And I was afraid to come to AA because, it's a cult and you're going to thump me upside the head with the Bible. And when I read, why don't you pick your own conception of a higher power? That just squashed all that cult thing because I don't think I've never been in a cult, but I don't think they let you think what you want, believe what you want, or leave when you want. And I have never found that to be a problem in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I did need a little brainwashing. It's working so far today for me, so I'm good with that part. And I've never once had anyone hit me upside the head with the Bible or tell me I had to think or believe like they do. And the greatest thing that I have, one of the many things I've gained in Alcoholics Anonymous is I got to pick my own conception of a higher power. It is a spiritual program to me, not religious. And we've all heard that. And spiritual is, to me, is just finding a connection. Spiritual has nothing to do with religion at all to me. It's just finding a connection. And I found one, and I had to, I have a sponsor that let me pick my own conception. I wrote down what I wanted in a higher power, my spiritual connection, if you will. And I listed, humorous, funny, forgiving, tolerant, laughs at me and works with me. And I gave him a name. And yes, I call him him. Harvey is what I call him. And it's not that rabbit in Jimmy Stewart movie. I had someone ask me that once. I said, no, I never even thought of that. It was just a name that came to me, Harvey. Harvey's going to be my spiritual guru, my guidance, my compass, my, little angel on my shoulder that keeps me going in the right direction. And some people call it prayer. I call it conversations. I have conversations with Harvey morning, noon, and night. And that's how I deal with my so-called higher power, my God, whatever you want to call it. I don't care to want to know. And there's times that when I have my conversations with Harvey, I'll say, Harvey, you're not going to believe what I heard in a meeting. And I make it real. It's the first time in my life that I've had a relationship with a thing or, or someone or something. I cannot tell you what Harvey looks like. He doesn't wear sandals or have a beard. Okay. I just know that. I don't even know what he looks like. I don't care. I don't have to explain it to anyone. It's just between me and Harvey. My mother, I know I'm going over. I'm just rattling tonight. Today, one of the other things I'm so grateful for, I asked my mother in sobriety, why did you not ever stand up for us kids with my dad? And she says, I was so scared. I was so scared he was going to hit me. I was so scared and didn't know what to do. Now, my mother went from living at home to living with my dad, never on her own, never independent. And looking back, I see her fear, and it's easy to understand now. And today, I go over once or twice a week and I vacuum and I clean and I do her grocery shopping. I get her medicine. I'll even trim her hedges sometimes when her yard people don't do it like I want. But I get to today. I get to, and for the longest time, I did not like that woman. And sometimes I still don't like her today. And it's okay. I love her. I care about her. And when she's gone, I'm the one with the gifts of peace. I've done any and everything I could possibly do for that woman. I don't argue with her when she says, oh, Mary Beth, you look a little puffy because I'm gained weight. That's her nice way, but I get it. And I just say, yeah, Mom, I think you're right. I don't even go there, but you guys taught me. You guys taught me love and tolerance. And same with my dad. He we don't know what wife he's on, but he's in a retirement place doing great. And I have a good relationship with him. I have, I don't have any resentment toward them anymore. And you guys taught me how to work that. So thank you for letting me rattle. Thank you for the gift of sobriety and the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous and service. The gift of service that makes me feel good about me when I help someone else. Thank you. My favorite quote is on page 20. I don't even have to look. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon the constant thought of others. It did not say convenient. Constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. And that's always in my mind, whether it be in or out of the rooms, and it helps me stay happy, joyous, and free. Thank you guys for letting me share.